Welcome to Audio Branding, the hidden gem of marketing. I'm your host, Jody Krangle, and this podcast will discuss just how sound influences our behavior. I generally talk about this in the context of advertising and marketing, but there are other places this is important too. I really feel that it plays a much more important role in our lives than maybe we realize. So let's delve a little deeper. Here's the second part of my interview with Josuel Rogers. Film is a really interesting study, too, because there's all sorts of sounds that go on around it that I guess are called Foley. So, like the way that a foot crunches on gravel or weather, which is really hard to get in actual audio at the time.
Yeah.
You have to kind of make it.
Yeah.
And if it's really good, you don't notice that it's being made. It's just there, and it lends a sort of depth to the scene.
That's true. And then if you sometimes, I forgot where I saw it, where they had, what makes the sound that you hear in the movies, for example, what makes thunder or
Yeah.
what, how glass is easier, but let's say ambient noise, how they create it. And it's actually very surprising as the methods they use.
Yeah.
So it could be a piece of foil or stuff you don't actually think on. And then you get back into, let's say, the neuro aspects of it, the mind, how your mind associates a type of sound with, for example, the weather. So you hear maybe a piece of foil and they're making it sound like thunder or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You register it as thunder, but it's actually not thunder at all.
Yeah, it's strange how our minds work.
Yeah.
It interprets it all on its own.
Exactly. It filters it all on its own. It's probably you're sitting there and it's like, well, there's supposed to be thunder now, so that sound is probably thunder.
Yeah. And it's amazing also because I think that the way that microphones pick up the sound kind of colors it as well. So not only are these people making sound effects that sound like what we expect them to sound like, but they're also making it sound like we expect it to sound like through the filter of a microphone and not just our own ears.
Yeah, it's also when you hear a recording of yourself. That's so for the you probably now you're accustomed to it because you've done it so much, and I'm also accustomed to it because I've recorded.
Yeah, which I guess is the same for any music, right?
But the first time when you hear your own voice, it sounds really weird to yourself because you're not accustomed of hearing yourself from a third person perspective.
Yeah, it is a little odd. And I will tell you that I even experience that now when I hear myself on a commercial, for instance. Like if I'm driving in my car and I hear a radio commercial that I did, it doesn't sound like me, I know it's me. I know I did that script. But it sounds different because of all the production and because of where I'm hearing it, maybe, So I guess if you hear some music that you did out in the world, out in the wild, maybe it sounds different to you.
That could well be, and especially if it's at random. So for somewhere where you would not expect to hear it.
Yeah.
Then it's even stranger. So let's say, for example, you did a commercial for a specific radio station, and then without, let's say, calling out the radio station, and then you hear it on another radio station, your mind will probably also be like, this is totally not correct.
Yeah, it'll sound strange.
Yeah.
I think it depends on where you're hearing it and, like you say, how random it is. Because if it is really random, and you're not expecting it, then, I've heard some television commercials that just came on and I wasn't expecting to hear them, and it tickled the side of my brain, maybe. I heard it in kind of the background and I wasn't expecting to hear it, and then you're, automatically fixated, but you you're not sure.
Yeah.
Strange phenomenon.
Yeah, and this also, so like with sound and music, is also how someone interprets it. It's like I said, like for my workshops, then I look into how to make a playlist, and it could be two different people
Yeah.
that would put the same song for a different mood.
That's very true. Yeah.
Then you think, okay. But then you realize also how personal sound is.
Yeah, it really is because we all hear differently. And that has I mean, I'm assuming that it has a lot to do with the spectrum that we all hear, and that can be different among different people, but we also all interpret our senses through our brains in completely different ways.
Yeah,
So how I experience the world isn't gonna be the same as how you do or anyone else.
definitely.
So, yeah.
And it's especially with so for example, the sound is totally in your profession.
Mhm.
So you pick up different sounds that other people probably don't even hear
It's possible, yeah.
because you're trained,
Yep.
let's say, or you've trained yourself to hear maybe as much as possible, where someone else just filters automatically a couple of sounds. They wouldn't even hear it.
I think the same thing happens when you're a musician.
Yeah,
Any kind of music, you're more attuned to the sounds. As when you create sounds, I think you're more attuned to it.
yeah. And I think like so for example, a drummer, he's quicker gonna hear the drums
Hmm.
than the guitar
Yeah,
because he's attuned to the drumming and how the drumming works.
yeah, that's very true. Yeah. So I guess we fixate on what we know.
Yeah, yep. That's definitely.
So, is there anything in particular that you teach in your lessons that you feel is like super important that people should pay attention to? I mean, I like the idea of people having their own playlists to regulate their moods. I think that's an awesome idea.
Yeah, that's for qua sound. That's the most. I would say that's the best kept secret. Well, it's not a secret, let's say, but that I use it myself. So
Sure.
I know how great or how good the effect is of doing something as simple as that. And it's just, I mean, everyone has playlists.
Yeah.
If let's say if they listen to a lot of music, they create their playlist on, let's say, on Apple or on Spotify. They make their own playlist that they with songs they like,
Hmm.
and then they just maybe randomly just add songs. But you can also take the time and just build a playlist to how you want it to be, that it can help you out. So like I said, from sad mood to good mood, or from mellow to up tempo.
Hmm.
I mean, I think people who go to the gym, they probably apply that knowledge without even thinking on it. They're like, oh, this is I'm going to be in the gym. I need to have something, some high energy.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to some high energy music. If they're running or if they're busy bodybuilding,
Hmm.
most people do already apply it
Yeah.
in that sense.
That's totally true, yeah. I remember doing that when I was doing that myself, you have a playlist that you're listening to, and suddenly the exercise seems to go faster. You have more of a burst of energy.
Yeah, and let's say so I also use it if I when I would go to the gym, I would start with some weights and they're, let's say, extra heavy. Then I would put on something that's really pumped up, it has a really lot of energy, and then it feels like it goes easier.
Yeah.
While it's pure a mood type of thing.
Mhm.
So if you don't have any music, then you're maybe really focused on how heavy it is. And maybe with the music, you're like, this is some good energy. Let's go.
Yeah, it helps a lot.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of my tips I would give anyone who's listening. So
Mhm.
take your time and build a playlist. I mean, it could take a while to build it up,
Yeah.
but the gains you get afterwards, that's longer than, let's say, the half an hour that you set making it almost as good as possible for what you want, because you can use it for how long you would like.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Do you have any other suggestions that you mentioned in your team building, for instance?
Yeah, and definitely other suggestions is, like I said, to focus on how you speak to yourself. I would say
Yeah.
so. Try and keep that as positive as possible. Like I said before, it's easy to see what all goes wrong and blame yourself, and there's enough negativity in the world from outside and inside. to try and get at least the inside as positive as possible.
Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah, and it's not gonna be easy.
Yeah.
That's for sure. But the more you do it,
Hmm.
the easier it'll be. The more you get accustomed to it. So repetition is key.
Yeah. Very, very good advice. Yeah. And words matter. I think maybe a lot of people don't realize how much they matter, how much they can change your mindset just with a word.
Yeah, it's if you think on it, everything around you is a word. So if you probably cannot imagine what you would call a bird if someone didn't tell you it's a bird. You've already associated that thing that flies. You've associated it with the word bird. And that's already a big impact if you think on it. And then it's like, yeah, it's difficult or impossible. If you've already associated something with impossible,
Hmm.
the word that says it's there's no chance that you'll ever do it, then you're gonna always think of something as impossible. You're gonna assume that word puts a block on it immediately. So let's say if you see a nice house, you're like, oh, that's a nice house, and you automatically think it's impossible. I'll never afford it. Then you're already 10 steps behind.
Yeah.
You've already helped yourself to not afford it.
Yeah, it's very true. So there's so much that we teach ourselves every day, bad and good.
Yeah, it's and we teach ourselves it. Let's say we've been taught it, and for the listeners who have children,
Hmm.
you also pass it down to your kids.
Yeah.
So they're accustomed of hearing something in a certain way. They would probably most likely also say it in that way or interpret it in that way
Hmm.
that they've been taught.
Yeah, very true. So it just perpetuates.
Yeah, and it goes different ways also with the coaches who coach, let's say in sport, a
Hmm.
sports coach, or let's say a football coach or a baseball coach or a hockey coach. It also has an effect on the team. I can't remember which hockey coach it was, but it's also in a book that's, let's say, where they talk about neuro linguistic programming,
Hmm.
where he would tell his team to, for example, not take the puck on the left, and then the whole team would then take the puck left because your mind nature does not have something that does not exist.
Hmm.
So the sky is there. That's it. There's no negative in nature, and so your brain really actually does not register negatives. So if you say don't use your left, your brain hears okay left, and your first instance would be to use your left. But if you say take it from the right, then you're like, oh, okay, I have to do it from the right, and it goes much easier. There's one less step in between.
So was he trying to get them to go to the left, or he didn't know that he was getting them to do that by mistake?
Yeah, it's by mistake. So
Okay.
he has a thought pattern of he does want them to do it on the right,
Uh-huh.
but since everyone is busy taking it on the left, he's like, not on the left. So instead of take it from the right side, and that's we there are a lot of examples of that. For if you now the Matrix is a good example with Neo and the vase that's falling down.
Hmm.
Yeah, did the vase fall because the oracle warned him about the vase, or if she didn't say anything, would he have left the vase alone?
I guess you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, what are you working on right at this moment? Like, are you doing more music? Are you doing more coaching? Like, where have you is it a bunch of different things? Are you sort of settled into one more than others?
I would still say I do a bunch of different things.
Hmm.
So I do the coaching.
Okay.
I also have a podcast.
Yes. Tell me about that. I want to hear more.
Yeah, it's called the Hip Hop Minded Professional,
Hmm.
And the idea behind the podcast is to have guests on who have a background in hip hop, or maybe still do something with the culture. So then you can think of, it could be an accountant who used to be a graffiti artist, or a teacher who used to be a DJ. And then they talk about the past, their hip hop past, but also the what it did for their mindset, the lessons they take with them in what they do now,
Yeah.
and how they apply that.
I heard your last one with a fellow who is a scientist, I think.
That's with, he's also a coach.
Yeah. Oh, he's also, yeah. Yeah, he sounded really fascinating.
Yeah, he's also that's Yannick.
Yes,
He's also
Yannick,
he's
yeah.
also a coach. And what the story behind that is, so when I came up with the idea of combining hip hop with coaching, I did what everyone does these days. I go to Google. So
Yes.
I Google it and see, does anybody else do it? Do they have the same idea?
Yes.
And he wrote in his university days, he actually wrote a thesis on it. So on hip hop and motivation. So I stumbled upon that and I was like, okay, let's see if I can find this guy on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And there he was
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And then I figured out, oh, now he's really now actually doing coaching, and not in the same way. But then we had a chat on how that went. And he used to be a DJ actually. So he was also let's say, really in the audio side.
Yeah. And I remember him saying, he wrote the paper, but you're the one who acted on it.
Yeah.
I remember that.
This is a funny thing. He's like, yeah, I wrote it. I just put it out there.
Yeah.
And you're doing it now. I was like, yeah, well.
That is so
It's
great.
always nice to have a kind of confirmation of that someone else has the same idea, but
Yes.
that it could work. When someone else says, yeah, it could work, then you have that little extra boost of confidence. This can really actually work.
Yeah, totally true. What's the URL of your podcast so that people can hear?
If they go to podcast.hiphopculturecoaching.com.
Okay, so that's your URL.
Yeah, that's the easy way to find it. And they can look for it on Apple, Spotify, Deezer, most streaming platforms, most of the popular streaming platforms. And let's say if I have missed a platform and you are using it, please let me know.
Sure. Yeah. So again, it's called the Hip Hop Minded Professional. I love that.
Yes.
And it's Hip Hop Culture Coaching on Instagram and Facebook?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to link to that article about music and mood too, because I think it's excellent.
Yes. And I would, for the ones who've read it, I would like to know what you found of it. So if you're on LinkedIn, connect with me, send me a message. Just let me know you're out there.
Sure. And they just look up your name?
Yes.
And how do you spell your name?
So you spell my name Josuel, and then Rogers, Rogers. So
Okay.
as Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood for
Yes,
those who still
That's the easy part.
who
Yeah.
still know it. Yeah, that's the easy part.
Okay.
And then there's if all is well, there's only one of me in that
Yes.
sense, and just look for a guy with a picture with headphones on, and it'll be good.
Yes. I love the headphones. Okay. Thank you so much for sharing all this with me today, Josuel. That was great.
Thank you.
I think it'll resonate with a lot of people too.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for listening. And if you like what you heard, please take a moment to give the podcast a review. It's greatly appreciated and super helpful. Until next time.